Thank you for your comment. And Sarah Silver, if you would like to unmute yourself and make your comment.
Hello, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I am a resident of 2208 Carroll Street, and my apartment faces the trees. So I'm very lucky I get to look at these trees every day. I immediately get emotional because they mean a lot to me. They're teeming with life. There's so much life in that property with those trees, and it might seem silly, but it's helped so much this year. I first noticed Zachary Hyman when he was surveying the property sort of abruptly. Usually no one is on that property, which is great because it's a sacred space and it remains so. I believe Greg, my neighbor, was the one who approached him out of the window and asked what he was doing and said it was private property. And Zachary Hyman's response, he was with an associate, he said that, quite frankly, he asked us what we do with the property. What do we do with this? What do we use it for? And of course, Greg's response was that we enjoy it. And that's really the root of this neighborhood, just enjoys it. It does seem that the permit was filed under false pretenses. This was clearly not meant to be a non-developmental permit. And if these trees are in such despair and are so dangerous to the community, then what would the City of Oakland done had the permit not been filed? You know, there's one tree in particular that is leaning that seems pretty obvious, needs to be addressed, but the rest of the trees do not need to be taken down, especially for a non-developmental permit under false pretenses. This should be denied and an investigation should be put forth. I really implore you to look into this further and not just approve.
Thank you for your comments. Chair, we have had 2 more members of the public raise their hands.
Yes, I'd like to go ahead and hear from them.
Thank you. John Bauer will be our last speaker. Margaret Gordon, if you would like to unmute yourself, go ahead and make your comment. Margaret Gordon, if you would like to unmute yourself, go ahead and make your comment. Let's try John Bauer. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Hi, commissioners. My name is John Bauer. I have been an active volunteer with the organization Trees for Oakland, which is a project of the Oakland Parks and Rec Foundation for many years. I've been involved in the planting of the 1,500 trees that Trees for Oakland accomplished over about a 4-year period. We had a lot of meetings and dealings with tree services staff. And so I'm not here to comment on the merits of this particular case, but I do want to remind commissioners, because I've also been a commissioner in the City of Oakland, served on commissions and task forces. And I just want to remind you that, you know, your job is not to rubber stamp things that come from city staff or to always take city staff as the definitive experts on any topic, but it's to have an independent viewpoint on the issues presented to you. It's very easy for commissioners to rely on city staff as the experts, but please have an independent review of this. And if you need more expert opinion from other arborists, please seek it. I've had a lot of experience where I really doubt the motivations of some of the staff people. And you're welcome to reach out to me for more information on that.
Thank you for your comment. And we will circle back to Margaret Gordon if you are able to go ahead and make your comment. It seems as if Ms. Gordon's having an audio problem, so she is not able to make her comments.
Okay. Sorry, if it is Margaret from West County Indicators Project, I would hope I would like to hear from you. Okay, I think then that I see one more person coming up. Can we take one more person? Derek Schubert.
Sure. Derek, if you would like to unmute yourself, go ahead and make your comment.
Hi, it's me again. I already spoke, but I was talking with Miss Margaret earlier today. She said that she wasn't going to be able to zoom in, so she was going to be using her cell phone. I think there's like a *6 or something like that she has to press to unmute herself. But if you can help her with that, I think that might be the cause.
Okay, thank you for that. That's true. If Margaret, if you're calling in, I think it is *6 to unmute.
It is
yourself.
*6, yes. So Margaret, I've allowed you to unmute yourself again. If you can use *6 to unmute. It appears there's still some technical difficulties.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that. I would have liked to have heard Ms. Gordon's comments. But given the technical difficulties, I will go ahead and close out the public comments for this item. And I'm now going to turn it to where we will have some questions from the commissioners that can be directed to staff, the appellant, or the applicants. So commissioners, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Commissioner Allen does have a hand raised.
Okay, the chair recognizes Commissioner Allen.
I thank you. So I do have a question. I would like to know, has there been a committee that has actually gone from either staff or commissioners prior to me joining that has gone out to review the site and to look at the trees and the impact that it is making on the buildings? And if so, if there was a committee or if there were people on this call who participated in that, I would like to hear that feedback as well.
That is a good question. We do have a tree committee. I know Commissioner Ha is on it. I'm not sure who else is at this point. Was the tree committee able to meet and discuss this particular item?
This is Commissioner Moore. Yes, we were, and we met the Todd on site to inspect the trees as well.
Okay. Do you have any feedback? Do you have any comments?
We've actually had an additional meeting with them to go over what the city's policy is. And I think some folks are confused as to how the city has to determine when a tree is considered unhealthy or unstable or hazardous. And to the inspectors' credit, they are following the tree ordinance exactly. And I think they also think that might be a big issue because the tree ordinance is very old and needs to be rewritten. But as it is written, the city has to follow that ordinance. So just for folks on the call who don't understand that and have been, accusatory to the city employees, they are following the ordinance as written. There is a lot of room to rewrite that ordinance, but it is not currently written. As some folks have mentioned, we did mention to them it would be important to put in that ordinance to have replacement trees, and that value or anything wasn't discussed, but that should be an item that is high priority, and they totally agreed with that, and some other items as well. When we inspected the trees with them, there are some those trees are not in great shape. I'm not sure what people are looking at, but I think 3 of them have gaping holes that I could literally crawl into underneath them. They're extremely unstable. Besides that, the elm is taking over the entire left. I don't know what the address is, but the left side of it looks like ivy, but it's not ivy. It's actually the elm tree has actually become taken over the side of one of the apartment buildings up against the fence. And I can let Commissioner Ha speak better toward that because she was able to go up on the top of the property.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Ha, and I will kind of give a little overview on what we saw on the property. So the property is, I mean, I'm sure everyone is familiar, but it's on a slope, and one of the trees is leaning towards the street, and Todd, I think Lawson had in his report the exact degrees that it's leaning, and then I believe there's actually 8 trees on site, and one of them is actually too small to be deemed a protected tree because its caliper, which is like the circumference or the diameter of the tree, one of those measurements is smaller, and so there's another smaller tree that is on the slope. There's one tree that is kind of in the mid slope, and it has been heavily pruned, and so there are there's large limbs that the arborist has assessed that it has been over thinned, the canopy, so you can kind of see through the canopy, which I guess if the other trees are removed, it kind of threats itself from being blown out, being impacted by wind. And so, so I guess I described maybe two of the trees in the application. There's 3 American elm trees that are adjacent to the Carroll Street property. And those are the ones that Commissioner Moore just described as they have little suckers, which are little, like small growths at the base of the tree, but sometimes they spread if the tree is stressed. And there's 3 of them, and so almost there's an area that they have taken up a lot of surface area of in the area where the 3 trees are, and they have very little canopy, so I think it looks like they have been pruned as well in the past. And then there is a larger black acacia tree that is towards the back of the property, kind of where the property flattens out, and it's closer to I believe it's 20, or I'm not sure of the address, but the building, if you're facing the lot, the building on the right side, it's closer to that building. It's a mature tree, so it's the largest tree there, and it has the largest canopy, and it really sort of like dominates that area, and it is very beautiful, and that is the tree that has the cavity at the base of its trunk that Commissioner Moore referred to. I believe it's like 24 inch. It goes 24 inches down into its trunk, and it's about 18 inches wide. But in my observation, the tree is standing straight. There's no, with the exception of the cavity, there's no evidence that the tree doesn't look like the tree is going to fall over like tomorrow. So that was kind of our, that's kind of a quick summary of what our sort of assessment that we made when we were there and what we heard from the arborist.
Okay, do you have a recommendation for how this commission should act?
I have a few questions, actually, that if I can ask them now.
Sure, go ahead.
I have a question for the applicant. Has there been any work done, either like architectural drawings or any work that supports an intent to develop this lot in the foreseeable future?
Mr. Cohen, if you would like to unmute yourself and make a comment.
Not that I'm aware of. Talked about, I've only looked at what's possible, but I haven't done any drawings on it.
Okay, Commissioner Ha, did you have further questions?
I'm wondering from Public Works. I'm wondering if this is a question for Public Works. Is there any way to assess or prioritize the kind of request of removal of the trees? This is the first tree permit decision that I've seen that has multiple, like as many as 7 trees on it. So, you know, regardless of some of the issues that are present for all 7 trees, I wonder if there's a way to assess kind of the priority that is put on in terms of how they are to be removed. Given that we are hearing this appeal as a non-development tree removal, it's, you know, if this permit were to go forward, all of the trees would be removed, presumably, and then the lot would just kind of sit vacant. And I'm wondering if there's kind of a phased approach, if the trees certainly do have to be removed because of health and risk and liability reasons, if there's any sort of way to discuss that.
Sure. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Ha. This is David Moore, Acting Parks and Trees Manager. Like Todd, I'm also a certified arborist by the International Society of Arborists, and I'm also tree risk assessment qualified by the International Society of Arborists. And generally speaking, what I believe you're asking for is what's the most important tree to remove, which would involve a very different type of analysis. So Todd and I are both trained on tree risk assessment, which in simplest terms is what are based off of the biological and structural conditions of this tree, what are the chances of it failing underneath a certain time period? What are the potential targets underneath it, and what are the value of those targets underneath it? And that's based off of a specific time period always, because it would be a different analysis for what are the chances or what's the risk rating for 6 months from now, or 1 year from now, or 5 years from now. And there's actually a methodology that we've been trained and qualified on that helps achieve a numeric score for if a client was working on a private property, if we were hired to work on a property and the client asked us to go through that, we're technically qualified to do so. However, that is not the process that happens. It goes far, far beyond the process per the tree ordinance, which is really just much more simple of, do the conditions of this tree meet the criteria for removal, which don't involve necessarily a numeric rating of the risk value underneath a certain time period. So no, that type of analysis has not been performed, nor does the protected tree ordinance call for that.
I have a similar question, or a sort of follow-up. You know, we see the appeals, but we obviously don't see all of the tree permit requests. How common is it for there to be multiple trees or as many trees as this on a tree removal permit request?
It's not entirely uncommon. There's sometimes 1, 2, half a dozen trees on a tree removal permit. Todd actually handles these more firsthand than I do. I'm usually the secondary approver. And Todd's been doing it longer. Maybe you have an estimate, Todd?
I would say that probably 50%, just ballparking it, 50% have maybe 2 to 3 trees. More than 2 to 3 trees is very few. Multiple tree permits usually fall under development related tree permits where large construction is taking place. But for non-development, it's usually under 3 is typical. 3 to 1, 2, or 3 trees is the typical.
And when you all are making your assessment, do you consider remedial actions such as bracing or tree surgery or something like that?
We look at how the tree could be pruned. Always my first action when I walk up, is there a tree here that I can save? That's what I'm looking for, is a prime specimen that is placed properly, that is in good condition with no structural defects or defects that can be significantly corrected through tree pruning. And that's how we judge a tree, as David said. It's the structure, the biology, and how does the tree appear as it is.
Okay, thank you. Do other commissioners have questions? I'll also, to staff, Commissioner Koss-Reed is having problems with his computer. It's crashed, and so he is now called back in the attendees.
I got it back working
Oh,
again.
you got it. Okay, good. So I'll open it back up to the commission to ask any other questions or make any comments. I have some, but I'll wait until others speak. Yes, Commissioner Koss-Reed.
I guess I am curious about one of the attachments that was sent as public comment, not as so much referenced tonight, I think, talked about due process like notifications with regards to tree removals, and again made, I guess, similarly inflammatory accusations around violations of law and process by city. Could city staff just speak to that? I mean, were people properly informed, or do they not need to be informed yet because the decision isn't final? Just curious about clarity around any sort of due process and legal liability on this.
Yes, and I had some similar questions about that, if you don't mind me kind of adding on to that.
Please.
Okay. So, looking over the tree removal ordinance, it does state that there should be notice to all occupants that are in adjacent properties, should receive something in the mail addressed to them as occupants. And there was some information in some of the supplemental materials that suggested that letters were sent to owners or building managers. And so the concern that I had is that information did not trickle down to the actual, to the tenants, to the occupants. So I was wondering if staff could speak to that.
Sure. And this is David again. So the tree protection ordinance states that owners, as well as for non-development related tree removal permits, that notification happens in multiple ways. One, it happens by the applicant posting the trees that are to be removed. And these are visible for the duration of the public comment period, and they're big red tags. My mind's going fuzzy. I think it's 25 days. Is that correct, Todd?
It's 20 working days. And then there's, after the end of the 20 working days, there is a 5-day window of appeal that is working days also.
Yes. Okay. So 20 days public comment, or 20 days of posting followed by 5 days of appeal window. So it's 25 days total. These are pretty highly visible 8.5 by 11 notices on the trees themselves, which are, I think, visible by most building residents. It also says, and that was achieved. Um, the the ordinance also says that occupants shall be, contacted through a letter, though they don't have appeal rights necessarily. Only building owners do. So the City of Oakland has a directory for building owners where we can look up each parcel and find out who owns it. And it's no problem finding out those folks who are adjacent property owners and sending them letters. It's also rather straightforward to contact adjacent occupants if it's a single family home. But there's a major shortcoming when it comes to apartment buildings. So apartment building tenants or any subdivision tenants, the City of Oakland doesn't have access, at least our department doesn't, and planning and building, when we ask them, they don't, to find out even how many units are in each building. And these are rather large buildings. I personally visited after it was brought to our attention that our notification was insufficient. It was through, we were told, hey, the occupants deserve a letter. So I actually went there myself to try to determine how many units are in each of these apartment buildings so that we could send them letters. But this is not entirely possible to do because each apartment building is different. Many of them have their mailboxes inside of a foyer that is behind glass. And technically we can't be trespassing onto or into these properties to deliver letters. And I don't think we have the legal right to actually hand deliver letters into mailboxes either. So the way that the ordinance is written does not cleanly translate to apartment buildings. So what was done is that I estimated the number of mailboxes per building, and then we delivered that many letters through US Postal Service to the building management, asking them that they distribute these letters to their tenants.
Okay, thank you for that summary. I just wonder if there's a way to do this. I mean, as you know, an apartment dweller for most of my life, I still got plenty of junk mail. My address has to be discoverable somehow. Do any other commissioners have any questions? Reed, do you have your hand still raised, or is that from before?
Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, I appreciate what was just shared there in terms of the efforts to live up to at least the spirit of due diligence and reaching out to everybody. And it sounds like there's at least some challenges there as well as obligation maybe on the part of the property owners or the people who are listed as unit owners, or not unit owners, parcel owners, to communicate to any residents on their property. I guess one of the other questions I have would be, there were a lot seems to be raised around this with regards to the ECAP and climate goals, and in addition, a lot of intangibles around beauty, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds like in an ideal world, I guess I'd be curious to hear city staff perspective on whether or not the ECAP and these other quality of life things need to be brought into an update of the tree ordinance, and then hear from staff about, does PRAC have a role in driving for a proposed update of the tree ordinance, or who does that sit with? Because it sounds like it's pretty badly outdated.
I'd be happy to respond to that. This is David again. We're grateful for the support of the state and CAL FIRE, who in 2018 granted the City of Oakland $970,000 to pursue a citywide tree inventory and urban forest master plan for the next 50 years. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this term, these two activities are considered the lifeblood of any urban forestry program, which is why the state sponsors these. And we're grateful for CAL FIRE support because the City of Oakland is not worked that into the budget. So the citywide tree inventory, if you can't count it, you can't manage it. So you have to start by counting and measuring the trees on the streets. So that includes all street trees as well as trees in landscape parks. And then that's combined with tree canopy analysis from aerial data. And we're using this information to measure our urban forest. One of the major tenets of the project is for it to be an equitable urban forest master plan. And the inventory is 90% complete now. It should be completed in about a month. And this has been quite a challenge, but also I think a triumph for the city to complete underneath this uncertain budgetary and COVID times. And then with that inventory will come a community engagement process, which we hope to initiate in 2022. And then leading to the completion of an urban forest master plan that is equity focused in early 20. And did I say, I'm mixing my years up. We're going to be starting the community engagement in the next couple months in 2021. And then the urban forest master plan's goal of completion is early 2022. So this is a monumentally heavy lift to perform, and it takes years to do. And we acknowledge that people deserve a better urban forest with policies that are contemporary and reflective of the actual resource that's actually measured. But for some reason, Oakland these efforts have never been completed before. Oakland does not have a citywide tree inventory, nor does it have a comprehensive equity-focused urban forest master plan. So it's been a long time coming, you could say. The good news is that the ECAP, one of the goals of the ECAP is to complete this plan, to complete the urban forest master plan. And we hope to dovetail directly into the work that the ECAP has framed, sort of like two bicycle racers. And the first one, breaking the wind, we're just tucking right underneath that so that we can engage community members on what they want Oakland's urban forest to look like for the next 50 years. So we can incorporate that feedback and shape policies that will hopefully lead to funding. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate forum to lead anybody on about how future votes should happen.